Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 186 of Screw the Commute podcast. We got Daryl Hill here is with us today. He's part of Vetrepreneurs Month on Screw the Commute podcast. He was a Marine officer, and he's going to talk about some mental issues of entrepreneurship that are extremely powerful, and I'll introduce him to you in a minute. And I hope you didn't miss episode 185, also a veteran, Joel Stewart. He talked about getting into business through franchising. And I really didn't realize you could get into some franchises and work from home for just a few $1,000s. I thought it was 20, 30, 40, 50 or more. But he'll tell you about that in episode 185 if you missed it. And please tell your friends about the podcast. The more successful it is, the more freebies I can give to our faithful listeners. And check out our podcast app also. It's in the Apple Store. You can go to screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. And we got complete instructions to show you how to use all the fancy features so you can take us with you on the road. All right, and I got a big freebie to thank you for listening to this podcast. It's my $27 ebook, How to Automate Your Business. And just one of the tips in this ebook has saved me over 7.5 million keystrokes and allowed me to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 40,000 customers without pulling my hair out. You don't want to miss this. Check that out at screwthecommute.com/automate free. screwthecommute.com/automate free. And don't worry about writing everything down. We have all the things we'll talk about with Daryl and all the links I give you in the show notes for episode 186. And the way you find that is you go to screwthecommute.com/186, and you'll go right to Daryl's interview. All right, our sponsor is, we're, like I said, we're working on Vetrepreneurs Month here at the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. We're approved by the Department of Defense to participate in the MyCAA Military Spouse Scholarship Program. And just to all military, veterans, active duty, spouses, law enforcement, first responders, we give a $9,500 scholarship to thank them for all the work they do and all the risks they take on our behalf. Plus, the Department of Defense gives the military spouses that are eligible another $4,000. So they can get a total of $13,500 towards their education. And that education can be taken with them anywhere they happen to be deployed. So I'll tell you more about that later, but you can check that out at imtcva.org/military. imtcva.org/military. All right, let's get to the main event. Daryl Hill helps entrepreneurs overcome business PTSD by putting subconscious architecture in their minds so they can get back to enjoying the seven-figure lifestyle. He does this through magnetic meditations. And a lot of these things are trademarked, these methods that I'm telling you, because I never heard of them before. So this is going to be a unique episode. He does it through magnetic meditations, online courses, and subconscious sessions that are guaranteed to break through any mental blocks to level up your life. Daryl, are you ready to screw?
Absolutely.
The commute. All right. All right. Well, good to have you on, man. This is stuff that is deep stuff. And I've seen some of your testimonials of the help that you've given people with lifelong problems and that they've tried in numerous ways to fix, and you fixed them. So tell everybody what you're doing now, and then we'll take you back to the beginning and see how you came up through the ranks.
Oh, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on, Tom, and appreciate everything you're doing for the veterans that are out there. I know you just gave a big talk at the conference recently here in Washington, D.C., and it was a huge success. I wanted to thank Stephen, actually, Kuhn, for introducing us, and he let me know how much of a badass you are at what you do with your marketing. I mean, you're doing this thing before the internet. People even know what the internet was. You've been doing this. So I'm honored to be here today and share my talents, which is really helping people go inside their minds and look at things differently, look at things like they haven't looked at before, so they can truly learn the lessons from their past and able to move forward. Because everybody who's listening to this right now has a mind, and everybody has the ability to learn something and unlearn something that's no longer working for them. And that's really what I do. I help people go inside their minds and create that architecture that works for them, that subconscious architecture, the stuff they can't actually see. And once they're able to put that in their mind and put it in their mind in a success track, instead of something that's been harming them or keeping them where they want to go, or self-sabotaging side of things, this enables them to really move forward with their life, and whether it's in business, whether it's in love and relationships, whether they need to get over some kind of fears that they've had, or any other things that have been really mind issues they've been stuck on, and not letting them get where they want to be at in life.
Well, tell them about that. One of the testimonials I saw, and the numerous ones that are on your site, and we'll give them the site and put it in the show notes also, was a young lady, and she's not hiding this anymore, so you could mention her name if you want or not, but she overcame stuff she had fought with for years and years and years. Tell that story.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things I'd say to everybody now is I really just want you to open up your mind and dump anything you had from before you actually start listening to this, because this individual came to me, and we had a friendship first because we kind of knew each other a little bit through the marketing side of the world, came in contact with each other. She's an amazing entrepreneur herself. It's actually Bill Glazer's daughter. Bill is one of the most famous direct copywriters on the planet. And Mara actually did an amazing testimonial for me afterwards, because she had been to like 4 other hypnotherapists. She had been to all kind of different, and she shares all this in the video. So
right. She tried, this is no secret. She's told that she tried everything under the sun she could find, and nothing worked.
And this particular thing came to the point where she had massive anxiety about staying in other people's houses, or staying in hotels, or even sleep in her own house, where she would constantly look and check the doors, or check the locks, and even put furniture. When she would stay in hotels, she would even put things in front of the doors as well. And in one session, we were able to really get to the root cause behind what that actually came from. And that's part of the whole process in doing this. Is important to really, it's like tearing out a weed. You really have to go underneath the surface there and take out the roots. And when you're able to take out the roots and you're able to plant something new there, maybe it's a flower you want to grow at that point instead of a weed, then now all of a sudden the weed no longer exists, and now you just have the flower in your life. So she went from being scared and dealing with all this stuff, now laughing about it, literally.
Right. She was just, she was giddy about it, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's literally been staying in Airbnbs, I think, pretty much ever since.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with checking the locks, but you don't need to check them 20 times in 10 minutes.
Yeah. So that's just one example of many. And a lot of times you've had things that have happened to you in life, and military gets referred a lot as known as PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
People come up with all kind of names of it over the years, whether it's shell shock or other things that people refer to it from, World War II to Vietnam to today. And now people are saying it's post-traumatic stress, right? It's not a disorder. My thing is this: everybody has been exposed to some kind of post-traumatic stress. I mean, if you were alive and I could ask you the question of where were you on 9/11, and you're an adult, just like our grandparents' generation, if you ask them where they were at when Pearl Harbor was bombed, basically, right, they're going to know in an instant. They're going to go back into that moment, and there's emotions that are basically trapped in that in that moment. So in the case of 9/11, I mean, you look at like anger, you look at sadness, you look at fear, and you're just anchor all those emotions into that moment. So that's why, when you use specific moments in life, what you're doing is you're shifting your mind into that moment, and all of a sudden all the emotions come back in a split second. Just the same way, if I asked you right now, do you remember one of the most grateful moments in your life? Maybe for myself, it was holding my baby daughter for the first time. She literally fit in my hand almost like a little football.
Wow.
So it's instantly you can go back into those moments as well. And the thing is, your mind is now attached emotions to these past things. And if the way the process actually works is helping somebody go through that, but not actually drop into those moments again, not have to talk about it. So in this instance with Mara, I never knew what she actually really dealt with. I only knew what she told me afterwards. So that's part of the process. Is it's actually a little counterintuitive. People have gone to possibly therapy for years on end about an issue, and they're constantly talking about it like over and over again. And sometimes it's helpful to kind of get the things out there. But on the other side of that too, you're also reliving that experience over and over again. So it further deepens on a cellular level, those emotions basically inside the body, and they constantly are reliving it like over and over again. So that's just another form of like post-traumatic stress has actually happened. So if you don't go back and pull out the root and replant, right, and put something positive basically in your life, because you're taking away the lesson that actually happened around that specific instance, and moving forward with that, there's people that then develop weight addictions, right, around food even. I've worked with women, for example, that have put on weight because they were raped when they were in the early ages, or they had some kind of sexual abuse, or they were attacked, and all of a sudden they've used weight now as a way to cope and feel better. But then all of a sudden they've now put on weight. So subconsciously they're trying to lose the weight, and they've gone to all the gyms, they've done the exercise programs, they've done the weight programs, you name it, they've done it, and they still can't lose that weight that's helping them get where that figure is. Because subconsciously, if their subconscious lets them get to that figure, they're putting themselves as a target again.
Mm-hmm.
And this also happens in business. I've had people, women in particular in this case, that came and they couldn't market themselves, they couldn't put themselves out there. It was because they had some instances that were similar to that in the past. So by them putting themselves out there, they would make themselves a target again.
Right.
And you think to yourself, well, how does this relate to like business, right? Well, that's exactly how it relates to business, because after we worked together, she was able to put out, not just redo her website and make it look like $1 million, but she was also able to start sending out marketing materials, start emailing her list that she had developed over the years, start replying to clients, start getting paid for what she's worth. I mean, that's another big one that I've seen from entrepreneurs a lot of times, is they're afraid to ask what they're worth. They're afraid to basically level up on that playing field. I had an entrepreneur come in one day, and the most he had made in a day, I think, was like his big high ticket program was like $750, right? And I'm like, well, you do amazing work. I mean, I would look at that. I'm thinking at least a 5K, price ticket just to get started to do what he, had laid out in front of me. And he said, no, man, I don't feel right. I don't feel this and that and blah, blah, blah. And it was all in his head. And it was all tied to having a self-worth issue that he developed when I think he was in high school, and he had been bullied and some other instances that were like that had happened to him, that his self-confidence was just in the toilet. And we had a conversation around that. Shortly after that, he raised his prices. He was doing negative $5,000 a month in his business when we first met initially. He was very upset. He had just invested in some high ticket coaching program that he had not gotten what he felt the value out of, but it wasn't the material that wasn't good. It was the fact that his mindset was in a kind of a broke like money blueprint that he had going for himself at that point, because he couldn't charge what he was worth because he couldn't see it for himself.
Right.
So in the process that we did, we worked on that. He then raised his prices. He was charging 25 grand for his packages. At that point, we were done. He was at one point, I remember him telling me he did 3 packages in a day. He made $75,000 in gross revenue for the day. That year, he did $500,000 in business just by changing what he was worth. And that was just one of the areas, and because of that, he was also he sent me an amazing poster. It's like a canvas thing. I still have in my house, and I love it. It talks about how he's able to see what he's worth now. And he now has a child. He was able to be a father now. He's happily married. Things are going really well. He was able to get the house of his dreams he wanted. And it just really is a testament to him doing the work as well, right? Because this isn't like a do-to process. This is a do-with process, right, as we go through and do things. So you have to be willing to do the work. I'm willing to do the work if somebody's willing to do the work, kind of thing.
All right, let's take you back. Let's take you back to, were you an entrepreneurial kid? How did you work your way up to learning these things?
Yeah, honestly, I want to share one story, and it's a story when I kind of looked at my money blueprint, where that really came from. That this is so important, and if you're a parent that's out there listening to this, a foot stomper, like this is so important. I'll never forget. I was about 7 years old, and I was walking in it was summertime. I was walking in the toy store, right? And I saw this toy up there, and it was $100. In today's time, that'd be like $1,000
Right.
to a
That's a
kid,
lot. A
right?
lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at that, and I'm like, wow, mom, I would like love to have that. How can I get that type of thing? And she's like, well, ask your father. It's not your birthday. It's not a holiday. You're not getting this, right? And I'm like, okay. Now, my parents, they were awesome to me in that sense, but they never bought me things that were outside of my birthday. And it's actually something I do even for my kids now. Like I don't buy them stuff that's outside of their birthdays, holidays, whatever. So I sat down and I went home, talked to my dad, and he's like, hey, listen, how much money you got to start with? Went and counted on my change. I had like $7.37. And he's like, all right, well, you got to get to 100. So now you got a starting point and you got an end point. And I said, well, how do I make more money to able to get there type thing? So he's like, well, you can, you can rake the grass after I mow the grass or whatever. I was too young to use the lawnmower.
Right.
So he gave me $1 for that. And that was like a huge, right? That was like, wow, that was like the biggest thing I did. My brother subcontracted his chores down to me for like pennies, So he's got me doing his chores for him. And I just started, start hustling basically. And I saw it as like, well, if there's things like that around my house, there's probably things like that around neighbors' houses too. So I started knocking on doors. Here I am, like 7 now, going on 8 years old, knocking on the neighbors' doors, figuring out ways how to make more money. So, one of the other things too is every time I went in one of these department stores was out there, I always look and see if something was like cheaper, right? It was less expensive than one of the other stores. This toy is $100 Voltron. I don't know if you remember. It's got 5 cats. They form into this little like Voltron big cat, right? So I'm sitting there, and I was in the store. It's not even around anymore. And I found it for $40. Now, at the time, I had about $25. It had been probably almost a year. I've been saving all my money. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wow, it's $40. I'm so excited. I'm so much closer than I was originally to the $100 goal, right?
Right.
So another thing is what I'm going to suggest to everybody here is everybody's got what's called reticular cortex that activates in the back of their mind. It's kind of like if I asked you right now, what type of car do you drive, right? And I say, how many of those cars do you see on the road now compared to before when you bought that car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, your mind is like seeing those cars everywhere, right? So I want to keep that in the back of your mind. So just like, activate that right now. Start putting out your own goals and your own visions for where you want to be at in your life, and start writing those things down. It's super powerful because what you're really doing is you're activating that reticular cortex. And that's what I did without even realizing it. So I went, found the toy, and I'm sitting there in line. Now, remind you, now I'm like 8 years old. I'm looking up at the checkout, and this sign in the back, right next to the cash register, says, layaway plan. And I'm like, what's that? And the lady looks at me and she says, well, that's when you put some money down on something you want to purchase, and you come back later and get it. And without an instance, I said, I want to do that. How much is it? And she's like, well, you put your money down. We you bring it over the toy or whatever you have. We'll bring it to the back and they'll put it in. And she's like, there's one caveat. He's like, you have to come back every month and pay $5 towards whatever it is. Otherwise, you lose all your money. Right. So I went Texas Hold'em. I went all in. Right.
Yep.
Gave my mom said, well, give me the money when you get home. I had $25. So I gave the $25 to my mom. Now at this point, I'm like $15 away. Right. But that's 3 months. Right. So I went out there and not just knocked on more doors. I mean, I knocked on every door that was out there in the neighborhood. Started doing anything I could to make a nickel, dime, whatever. And this turnaround, a few months went by. My mom was tired of going back to the store, and it was the second month. She's like, "Listen, there's only one more month. I'm going to buy this, put it in the house. You can't have it until you pay me the rest of $5, whatever. But I don't want to drive back to the store again." And I'm like, okay. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm jumping out of my skin. I got this thing on my house. It's sitting there, and it's like imagine having that pristine new car you've always wanted in your whole life. Maybe you're a Ferrari guy or a sports car, or maybe you like a truck or a Jeep, and it's sitting in your driveway, but you can't drive it, right? So that's what I'm dealing with right now at this point. So I'm waking up in the morning, I'm going downstairs before I go to school. I'm looking at my toy. It's in the living room, which is off limits. Kids aren't allowed in there. I'm seeing that thing going off to school, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, how can I make more money to go ahead and so again, it's having that focus too. So as an entrepreneur, you got to have focus. You got to have a goal in mind as you're going after whatever it is. If you don't have focus, you don't have a goal. It's like, if you left your house right now without your GPS and you try to get somewhere in Washington, D.C., good luck, right?
Right.
Like it's crazy out there. So you got to make sure you have that. So have a focus, have goal, have a vision for yourself where you're going to be. And last, but I finally remember getting that last nickel my brother gave me. I think it was something to do with I was doing the dishes for him. So he gave me that nickel. I gave it to my mom. I was able to get the toy. And that was an absolute game changer for me. I just want to share that, obviously, as a parent, but also that same strategy I used to get that toy is the same way I've used everything in my life, right? And I didn't realize that until I got older and I looked at my own architecture, my own subconscious architecture about how it is that I got love and relationships and how I got, the prosperity architecture inside myself. Like that for me became like full circle, because I saw how does a guy who literally at the time I was deemed to be in the mentally retarded classes until my mom fought for me to be in like first grade. How's a guy like that go and then graduate from the United States Naval Academy, one of the toughest schools in the country, to say the least, and become a Marine officer, right? Well, you do it because you basically have a strategy. And my strategy was, if you want something bad enough in life, you figure out a way how to get it, and that was the biggest thing. And I would say when you have that focus, when I had that focus, when it came to like playing like college football and stuff like that, it's absolutely relentless. Having that focus, having that drive, having that determination. That was the same thing I used actually when I got into second grade. I was able to do something. I saved my stars and I earned all these points. That was like off the chart that the teacher had never. She gave this like big, like all these prizes they basically had in school, and it was like you get 100 stars and you could go to the toy store and pick out a toy, and she would take you out for the day and like do lunch or something like that, right? Wow. Nobody had ever done it before in her class. And so I got into class. I was like, she's got little prizes you can get, for 10 stars, you can get this little knickknack over here. But I was like, you know what? I want that one. And I started out just like the same type deal. I started with my focus. I started with my goal. I started with a determination that I was going to get there. And that became that relentless attitude that I had. And sure enough, within, I don't know how many months it was, I was able to achieve that goal and start saving my stars to the next thing that I was going to do. And it was pretty cool because somebody else in the class actually saw me doing that. And they asked me, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going for the big one. And he saw me doing it because that environment that you have, once you get around high performing entrepreneurs, once you get around high performing people, is all of a sudden he wanted to do it with me. Right. So all of a sudden now we're both doing it. Right. So I would say right now, if you're alone right now, if you're an entrepreneur and you're at home and you're by yourself and stuff like that, realize that you have somebody like Tom that you can plug into on a regular basis, listen to the podcast he has right here. Also, I'm sure there's events that are going on possibly in your area. Also, find out where Tom's going to be, what event he's going to next, right? Because where Tom's at, there's other all-stars they're out there, kind of like Stephen Kuhn, right? Who I came in touch with Tom because of Stephen Kuhn. So again, it's like entrepreneurs who are all-stars like to hang out with other entrepreneurs who are all-stars, right? So I want you to put that in your notes as you're listening to this, because that's like super, super important. And that for me, like changed everything. Once I started to get around other entrepreneurs and other people that push me even harder than I push myself, which is pretty hard, then I like just got more jazzed up. So I get motivated to help other people that are out there like that. I get motivated to share my stories and the things that actually have made a difference, not just myself, but my clients now at this point, because that's where I really get inspired.
You know what I like about that story is a couple things. One is, sometimes I'm driving around with my employees to do something or go pick something up, and they might say, boy, I'd really like to have a car like that, but boy, it's too expensive. And I said, no, I do not want you thinking like that. I want you thinking like, okay, if I really want that, what do I have to do to afford that? Rather than, it's too expensive, I can't have it. So I love that the incentive that your parents put in front of you. And then the other thing I kind of do all the time is I don't have kids, but I absolutely refuse to like if somebody's out in the middle of the road with a football helmet trying to collect money for uniforms, no way on this earth will I give them a nickel. Because what am I teaching them? Beg, beg for a living. But if they're doing a car wash, I'll have my car wash 10 times because I'm teaching that kid to give value. And so I really, really love that story. So we got to take a brief sponsor break. And when we come back, we're going to ask Daryl, what's a typical day look like for him and how he stays motivated. Folks, this is Vetrepreneurs Month at Screw the Commute podcast. So I want to tell you a little bit about how my school supports military families and how our training can help them. First of all, we give a 50%, or it comes out to be $9,500 scholarship just to thank them for their service. And this applies to active duty folks or veterans or spouses. Then, like I said, the eligible military spouses, the Department of Defense, our school is approved by them to give an additional $4,000 scholarship. So this is perfect for military families, this kind of training. And I know firsthand, living in Virginia Beach, where there's one of the biggest collections of military in the world, the spouses around here normally have to take crappy jobs at lower than average pay because employers know they're going to get deployed and they don't want to invest in them. And then the spouse goes to the next place and has to take another crappy job for the same thing. This really sucks. So with internet marketing training, companies don't care where you live. I mean, you can work legitimately from home, and if you get deployed somewhere else, it doesn't matter. You can still be handling social media and email marketing and shopping cart stuff and customer service and all the other things every business on earth needs. And not only that, you can study from home with no expenses, no book expense, no travel or childcare. I mean, it's perfect for military families. And one more thing, you can sell your own products and service with the same skills that you learn. So check it out at imtcva.org/military. And of course, that'll be in the show notes. Give me a call because I'll be thrilled to talk to you about how we can support your military family. All right, and that'll all be in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the main event. Daryl Hill is here, and he is a military officer who has been doing great things, helping people get the right mindset. So Daryl, what's a typical day look like for you?
A typical day for me, I like to get up early.
What's that mean? That's a wide range there. What's early? I've heard 4:30 in the morning. Some of the people.
Yeah, I think for me, it all has to do with like sleep time.
Mm-hmm.
So typical sleep time for me is about 6 hours. If I try to sleep more than 6 hours, I really can't. I'll just wake up.
I get it.
So I could go to bed at like midnight. I'm up at 6, no problem type thing. So typically I'll get up in the morning. I like to go to the gym, get the day started. Cause a lot of times people, they're not up or not doing anything. It's a good time. So either hit the pool or hit the spin class or get on the Stairmaster, the equalizer, kind of get that heart rate going. A lot of times I'll be listening to a book, or I'm constantly having like my headphones in because I'm listening to some audible book as I'm driving or, traveling around or even working out sometimes. One of the recent books I listened to is David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was phenomenal. I mean, some books I don't like listen to, I work out, but that book I would, because it just motivates the hell out of you. So, amazing. And then I go on to just a typical day. I come back and, look and see if I have any appointments scheduled with clients. I have them blocked out, or I'm constantly creating like a new product, to launch basically out there, or emailing the list of entrepreneurs I'm working with. Or I'm actually spending some time going in and with one of my coaches and getting some feedback on something I'm doing, whether it's on a marketing funnel or working on like a webinar presentation or something like that. So constantly doing that, or, then I'm just playing with the kids. I like to schedule my day. So when the kids get home from school, I'm pretty much done for the day. So I can spend some time with them and they're now, my kids are 10, 12, and 13. So they're starting to get up there a little bit, and dad's not as important anymore, and they're starting to want to do their own thing. So I go out there as much as possible. If they want to go out and throw the football at 7:00 and it's dark out, I'll go out and throw the football with them. And they just want to spend some time to, do some, bake cookies in the kitchen. I'm all about it. So I think it's really important to have that balance in your life.
How
On the
much of
weekends,
your dad do you see in you?
it's an interesting question. I see a lot of my dad and me. My dad is super entrepreneurial. I grew up. He's been doing real estate now for 40 plus years. I'll tell you a quick story about him. So my dad basically was working on a bridge, and when I say bridge, I mean one of those big bridges, like I think it was the Delaware Memorial Bridge,
Wow.
and it's huge. I mean, it's if you fall from there, you pretty much die,
Right.
type deal. So he was on the bridge, and at the time, this is back, when work wasn't too uh, prevalent, and they always had people waiting to take their job, literally. So if somebody fell or somebody got hurt or whatever it was, they didn't want to do anymore. They had people, and he was on the bridge, and this guy fell, and he grabbed him in midair. And my dad's pretty strong; he's about 6'3". He played some college football, pretty strong guy. Grabbed the guy midair, pulled him back onto the bridge. The guy was white as all get out. I mean, he knew. I mean, he was going to his death.
Right.
And my dad looked at him and he said, "Hey, let me walk you down because you don't look so good." And my dad walked him all the way down. He looked back up at the bridge, and he's like, "You know what? I don't think I'm going back up there either. 'Cause I could have easily just fell off saving you." And he's got 2 kids at home at the time, my 2 older brothers, and so he went to the local coffee shop before he went home to tell his wife that he wasn't going back to work, and they were gonna have to find a new thing for him to do. Um, and he's sitting there. This guy pulled in a really nice car, and the guy walks in. My dad's like pretty straightforward. I mean, if you think of a guy in jeans and a t-shirt, like white t-shirt from outside of Philadelphia, kind of like remind me of that movie, like trying to remember the movie that like a Patrick Swayze type of guy,
Yeah.
And he's sitting there. He's like, "What do you do for a living?" The guy's like, "Well, I sell real estate." And my dad says, "What do you need for that?" And he's like, "You need a suit." And he's like, "Wow, that's cool." And the guy gives him, real estate agent gives him his card. So my dad goes down, doesn't own a suit. He goes down to the local, thrift store type deal, picked out a suit, showed up in the guy's office the next day. And he's like, "Well, I'm here to sell real estate." And that's how he started his real estate career. For the first 6 months, he didn't sell property, didn't make any money. And then all of a sudden he figured out how to do it. And that's part of the thing, guys. If you want to shortcut your success, is find out somebody who's going to teach you. Find out somebody like a Tom who's out there who's going to help you get that edge. And it's the learning what you're actually really paying for when you hire somebody at that level. And you turn around and you start working with this guy, and 6 months later you figure out how to sell his first house. And in the next like 6 months, he sold like 72 houses or something like that.
And that's persistence too. That's another lesson there. He didn't quit
Yeah.
it.
Drive and persistence, because you're seeing other people do it, so they've already figured it out. And once my dad figured it out, he showed up at the real estate convention they have there, and all these people were standing up and they were saying, "Hey, how many houses have you sold? How many houses have you sold?" And everybody's standing up, and my dad's the last guy standing up. He's also probably one of the newest guys. He just didn't know any better either. He's just like, "Hey, I'm just gonna keep doing this." He's like, I got kids to feed. I got to keep working. That's kind of hard work it's in my blood, I guess you could say, thanks to my dad. And they said to him, like, well, how many listings did you have? And he said 0. And all these other people had all the listings. He's like, "That's why I'm here. I'm here to learn how to do listings, because I've all just done buyers." And everybody's mouths in the audience just basically dropped at that point. So I look at him now, and he literally took that same persistence to doing, I don't know how many thousands of transactions like over the years, to getting to doing commercial real estate deals, to working with big box retailers, to learning how to put a road through one neighborhood to do a deal, and to get it done. And then all of a sudden figured out, well, wait a minute, I can do that for myself, to then starting to build neighborhood strip centers, little shopping malls.
Oh,
and
wow.
pad sites. And I've learned a tremendous amount of entrepreneurship skills just from watching him and talking to him. I mean, my first open house I sat on I was like 6 years old. I mean, I never forget, he had this cool little watermelon that was carved up, there in the house. So again, it's a little bit, that side of it is like, what you want to ask yourself, like, what is your financial blueprint for yourself? Like, what is your, business blueprint for yourself? Because there's all kind of different business models out there. There's all kinds of people out there that are doing different things, but you want to figure out like what works for you. And you also want to examine it. And that's what I really do with my clients on that side of things. Examine and see what's actually not necessarily that's broken, but it's not getting you where you want to be at. And we look and see where that is. And we construct and build the framework inside somebody's mind that allows them to really level up their life. So they're getting where they want to be at.
So how are you stay motivated?
Gosh, me, honestly, the biggest motivation for me is I literally am sitting on the solution for suicide.
Right.
And that's what really drives me is I did not start this process because I wanted to go make a bunch of money with a bunch of entrepreneurs. I started this process about 6, 7 years ago on my own personal journey. I lost 25 Marines to combat suicide within about a 3-year period. Guys, there were mentors of mine, guys that were brothers of mine, guys that were best friends of mine. I played football with in college, we're on a wrestling team, and just like disappeared. My old platoon, we had 45 guys go to combat, 43 got Purple Hearts, only 9 guys walk out on their own accord. And we had 5 guys actually killed in that deployment. So, and I wasn't able to be there at the time as platoon commander. I had massive survivor's guilt associated with it, which a lot of officers do, a lot of senior ups do, all the way up to the president of the United States, will have survivor's guilt from decisions that have been made that people didn't actually come home.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that would be a motivator, and I know you've helped a lot of people along those lines.
Yeah, and I started helping guys that were my unit. I started helping guys that reach out to me. Guys that were in my old unit would reach out to me because I started hearing stories about people that were having really amazing results. Started seeing stuff on Facebook, and then one day I helped this entrepreneur who happened to be one of Russell Brunson's top sales guys, and he said to me afterwards, he's like, "You need to do this for a living." And I was like, really? I was like, people really want this kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I've gone to all kinds of therapy my whole life, tried all kinds of different stuff. And it wasn't until now that I understand where the problem actually came from, that I was able to deal with it. And now I look at my life in a completely different way. It's like, you need to do this for a living. And at that point, I was like, really? And I still didn't know. I was kind of tired because I just battled back from 3 years from literally battle back from a point where I was literally living out of my car, traveling around the country. And I traveled doing life insurance and annuities there. And I'm sitting there now at this point, battle back. I'm living in a house now at this point. I've got everything stable. Everything's going well for myself. But I was kind of dead on the inside. And that's another thing as an entrepreneur, you want to kind of look at yourself as, what are you really passionate about? And what do you want to leave your legacy for? And don't focus on the money, focus on the impact you're making in like other people's lives and the differences you're going to make. And for me, myself, I knew that I wasn't doing what I was really called here to do. And when I flew back, I don't really care if you are or not. It's totally cool. But I went back to church the next day when I flew back on the spiritual side of things. I'm sitting there praying on my knees. I'm like, God, what do I do? What do I do? I mean, like literally, I feel like you're telling me to go in this direction. I don't know how to do it. I battle back from all this stuff. And where do I go from here? And that day, the sermon was go forth and serve, and God is going to take care of you. And I walked out of the Naval Academy Chapel thinking to myself, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. That night, this guy called me up who I met like Friday or Thursday night briefly in a cab ride. And he was actually in the program with Russell Brunson as well as I was at the time. And he said to me, he's like, hey, listen, I was like, I want some help. And I'm dealing with these things, I got these issues and I want to get my business on track. I'm not where I'm at. I've just invested a bunch of money on this and I'm still not making any money. I need help. And he's like, how much? I'm like, how much for what? He's like, I want to hire you to do what you do and help me kind of like you're doing the other guys. And I was like, wow. So I threw out a number. He's like, yep, no problem. I was like, wow. I was like, that was easy. And then he got another phone call like a day or two later from another woman, same type of deal. She asked me how much I wanted. And that's all I've done now. I don't know, 6 or 7 years or whatever it's been now. I haven't looked back. And it's been a magical ride. It's literally landed me in places like Cuba, hanging out with some of the most top 1% entrepreneurs basically in the world. It's landed me in rooms that I was just kind of pinching myself, couldn't even believe I'm in here. I've got a guy over here who's started, and we're now really super good friends. He did the largest merger acquisition on the planet, $48 billion. He calls me his mental bodyguard. You know,
That's a cool
so
term.
so it's been kind of interesting.
Well, speaking
Where
of that, tell people how they can find you and get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. They can get a hold of me by going on to just my website. It's just darylhill.com.
Yeah, spell it for them, and then we'll have it in the show notes.
Yeah,
too.
sure. It's a D like Delta, A like Apple, R like Romeo, Y like Yankee, L like Lima, and then H like Hotel, I like India, L like Larry, L like Larry, .com. So darylhill.com. And definitely, I've got some free stuff on there as well. Thanks to Tom for spending some time the other day looking at my website. And I'll have that put together so you guys can go on there, the resource tab, and get access to some of the meditations and some of the things that Tom talked about earlier today. Because I found out that the skill set I've developed, it works across the board. So no matter what, you're possibly having an issue with, and it's not so much that you have an issue. Maybe you want to get better at something that you're at right now. Maybe you're like Michael Jordan per se, and you're like, man, I want to play at that level. Well, even Michael Jordan went out and had a coach. Even Tom Brady's got Bill Belichick, right? And we like to claim Bill Belichick as one of our own from the Naval Academy because he grew up at the Naval Academy. His dad was a coach there for 30 years. He grew up to a ball boy, to Roger Staubach, and a bunch of the Navy greats we've had over the years. So again, you look at that blueprint for somebody like that as most successful coach out there in NFL history. Grew up here at the Naval Academy to understand what work ethic was, drive was. This stuff doesn't happen by accident. I've been blessed by the people I've actually had in my life. And they've really helped me get here. And I just want to end with like that one entrepreneur that turned around that hired me there. He went on to do $1 million from zero, literally the next 12 months in his business off the presentation I helped him with get started. So guys, it's possible for you. If you're starting at zero or you're doing 7 figures right now, doesn't matter. Everybody can level up to that next level. And that's what I'm here to do.
Well, powerful, powerful stuff there, Daryl. So thanks so much for taking the time to be on with us today. And we're going to definitely go over and check out all the stuff he has. I've already seen some of it, and it's extremely powerful. Wait till you see some of those people that he's helped, what they have to say about him. So thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody.